Most people don't realize this, but one of the biggest reasons they feel stuck is not because they're lazy, unmotivated, or incapable. It's because they lack clarity. They don't know what they want, where they're headed, or why they're even doing what they're doing. And without that clarity, there's no direction. And when there's no direction, momentum dies. Think about it. When was the last time you were excited to get up and start your day because you knew exactly what you were working toward? Not a vague, I want to be successful or I want more freedom, but something specific, measurable, and meaningful to you. Most people don't have that level of detail in their goals. They talk in generalities and then they wonder why nothing's changing. Clarity is what gives you power. It's what transforms a random set of actions into a focused plan with energy behind it. If you don't have clarity, every decision feels heavy, every next step feels uncertain. But once you know what you want, the way forward becomes obvious, even if it's not easy. The truth is, you can't build momentum in confusion. Momentum comes from progress, and progress only happens when you're moving in a direction that matters. People waste their lives because they spend years working on things they never really wanted. They chase other people's dreams, try to meet expectations that were never theirs to begin with, or stay on autopilot because they're too afraid to stop and ask the hard questions. Is this what I want? Does this matter to me? Most don't ask because they're afraid of the answer, but here's what you need to understand. Clarity isn't something you find once and never revisit. It's something you build, refine, and commit to. It's a practice. You don't need to have every step figured out. You just need to know what the next right step is. When you get clear on what matters, the rest becomes noise. Distractions lose their power. Wasting habits get exposed. You stop tolerating mediocrity in your work, your relationships, and your environment. And clarity doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean you won't have doubts. It just means you've made a decision about what matters, and that decision fuels everything. Clarity gives you a filter. It helps you say yes to the right things and no to everything else. You don't need to chase every opportunity. You just need to be aligned with the ones that move you forward. That alignment is where confidence lives. Now, if you're someone who feels like you've been spinning your wheels, overwhelmed by options, unsure where to go, take a step back and stop trying to do more. Start asking better questions. What do I want this season of my life to look like? What does success actually mean to me right now? Not in 5 years, not what your boss wants, not what your parents expect. You get clear on that and everything changes. It's not always comfortable to do this work. Clarity requires honesty. It might require letting go of something that's no longer working, an old goal, a job you've outgrown, a relationship that's holding you back. But that discomfort, that's the price of a meaningful life, and the people who live with momentum, who build things that last, they're not the ones who always had the perfect plan. They're the ones who got clear, took action, and adjusted along the way. You want to stop wasting your life, get clear, not tomorrow, not next year, now, because clarity creates momentum, and momentum, once it's built, is what gets you out of neutral and into forward motion. It's what builds careers. It's what deepens relationships. It's what turns potential into reality. So if you're feeling lost, overwhelmed, behind, it's not that you need to work harder. You need to see sharper. You need to decide what matters, decide where you're going, decide who you want to become. Everything else gets easier after that, not effortless, but easier because you won't be scattered, you won't be pulled in every direction. You'll be focused, and that's where the power is. Don't waste your life being busy with things that don't matter. Be intentional, be clear, and once you are, move fast, because the clock's ticking whether you have clarity or not. You might as well make it count. We live in a culture that praises busyness. If your calendar's packed, if you're constantly grinding, if you barely have time to breathe, people assume you must be doing something important. But here's the hard truth. Just because you're busy doesn't mean you're being productive. You can be moving all day and still going nowhere. You can fill every hour with tasks and still accomplish nothing meaningful. Busyness is a trap. It gives you the illusion of progress without requiring actual results. It makes you feel like you're working hard when really you're just reacting. checking your inbox, responding to messages, attending endless meetings. None of those things automatically move your goals forward, but they do fill time, and because they fill time, they feel productive. But if you're not careful, they'll consume your entire day, and you'll look back wondering where the time went and why nothing changed. Productivity is about results, not effort. It's about being intentional. Doing the right things, not just doing things. People waste their lives thinking they're being effective just because they're busy. They say yes to everything. They confuse motion with impact. They stay caught in a cycle of activity that looks impressive from the outside but is empty at the core. And here's why that's dangerous. When you're always busy, you don't have time to think. You don't reflect, you don't strategize, you don't create space for clarity. You're always catching up, always behind, always reacting. Productivity, real productivity, comes from discipline. It comes from saying no. It comes from choosing fewer things and executing them well. Ask yourself, what are you busy with? Are you actually producing outcomes that matter, or are you filling your time to avoid the discomfort of focus? Because focus is hard, it requires you to prioritize. It forces you to eliminate. Most people avoid that. It's easier to just stay busy. Busyness doesn't challenge your beliefs. Productivity does. The truth is, if you don't define your priorities, someone else will. Your calendar will get filled with other people's needs, other people's emergencies, other people's goals. You'll spend your entire day responding, and none of it will actually move your life forward. That's how people lose years. They mistake responsiveness for value. But value isn't in how many emails you answered today. It's in whether the work you did actually got you closer to your goals. This isn't about working less. It's about working smarter, working with intention, not just doing what's urgent, but doing what's important. There's a difference. Urgent things scream for attention. Important things don't always, and if you're constantly reacting to what's loudest, you'll never make space for what matters most. Take a look at your week. How much of your time is spent on things that truly matter to the future you're building? Be honest. How many tasks are just keeping you comfortable and distracted? When you get brutally honest about where your time is going, you'll realize how much of it is being wasted. And that's not to shame you, it's to wake you up, because once you see it, you can change it. Productivity is about being in control. It's about owning your time. Every hour has value, but only if you assign it. If you don't, you'll live in reactive mode, constantly busy, constantly stressed, and ultimately unfulfilled. Because deep down you'll know none of this is leading anywhere, so start making decisions based on outcomes, not appearances. Don't build a schedule that looks full. Build one that delivers results. Block time for deep work. Protect it. Stop treating your time like it's unlimited. Start measuring your days by what you actually achieved, not what you did. There's a big difference between someone who's busy and someone who's effective. The busy person can talk for hours about how much they're juggling. The productive person, they've already finished the important work and moved on. They're not in a rush, they're focused, and that focus is why they win. You don't get points for being busy. You get results by being productive. That means prioritizing impact over appearances. It means turning down the volume on noise and saying yes to the things that actually move the needle. So stop hiding behind a full calendar. Start measuring what matters. Don't let busyness steal your life. It will if you let it. The hours will pass, the days will blur, and you'll look up one day and realize you've been running in circles. Productivity isn't about speed, it's about direction. Make sure you're moving in the right one. You owe it to yourself to stop being busy and start being effective, because only one of those creates a life you won't regret. Most people go through life acting like passengers. They wait for permission, for circumstances to change, for someone to give them a better opportunity. But here's the truth, you're in control. You always have been. The sooner you accept that, the sooner your life starts to change, because the moment you take full responsibility, everything shifts from being something that's happening to you to something that's happening because of you. That's not always easy to hear. It's a lot more comfortable to blame external things, your job, your past, your boss, your family, the economy, but as long as you keep pointing outward, you give away your power. Control doesn't come from perfect circumstances, it comes from ownership, from realizing that even if you can't change everything around you, you can change what you do with it. You control how you show up, how you respond, how you lead yourself. The danger of not believing you're in control is that you start settling. You start accepting things you don't like. You make excuses instead of plans. You justify staying in places that don't serve you because it's easier than doing the hard work of creating something better. But that mindset will waste your life. You weren't meant to sit around waiting for conditions to be perfect. They never will be. Growth happens when you decide that you are the one responsible for the outcome. Being in control doesn't mean everything will go your way. It means you refuse to let failure or rejection define you. It means you stop outsourcing your happiness, your career trajectory, your personal growth. It means you understand that no one's coming to fix your life for you. And that's actually a good thing because it means you're not helpless. You're capable of change. You can redirect, rebuild, reimagine your future. Taking control starts with self-awareness. You have to stop and ask yourself, where am I coasting? Where am I blaming instead of acting? Where am I waiting when I should be leading? That awareness will sting at first, but it's powerful. It puts you back in the driver's seat. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, and then you have a choice. You can continue pretending it's not up to you, or you can step into the uncomfortable but liberating truth. You have more control than you think. A lot of people confuse control with perfection. They think if I'm in control, why isn't everything working yet? But that's not how it works. Control isn't about avoiding problems. It's about deciding how you respond when they come. You get to choose whether to give up or go again, whether to complain or solve, whether to ignore or confront. Your life is a series of those choices. You also control your environment more than you realize. The people you spend time with, the information you consume, the standards you hold, if you're surrounded by people who drain your energy, question your goals, or settle for mediocrity, guess what? That's not random. That's your choice. You get to decide who's in your corner. You get to raise your standards and walk away from what no longer aligns. You don't owe anyone access to your life who's keeping you from your potential. And yes, it's hard. It's hard to own your choices when you've spent years blaming circumstances. It's hard to admit that you've stayed in places too long, but the alternative is worse. The alternative is drifting. Waking up one day wondering where the time went, wondering why nothing feels different, you don't get more time back. What you do get is the ability to use today better than yesterday. Taking control means being intentional with your time, your energy, your goals. It means not just having dreams, but building the discipline to make them real, and that doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you decide that you're not going to wait anymore. You're not going to keep living the same year over and over again. You're going to lead yourself first, then others. You are not stuck. You might be scared. You might be overwhelmed, but you are not stuck. The second you choose action over excuse, clarity over chaos, discipline over distraction, you take your power back. You stop drifting and you start building. You're in control, and that's not pressure, it's freedom, because it means you don't have to wait for anyone else to change. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect timing. You just need to decide that your life is too valuable to waste on autopilot, decide to stop playing small, decide that your goals are worth the effort it takes to reach them. The minute you stop saying, I can't, and start saying, I will, everything changes. You're not a victim. You're the leader of your life. Start acting like it. The people you surround yourself with shape your future more than you realize. Your standards, your mindset, your ambition. They're all influenced by proximity. Who you talk to daily, who you listen to, who you let speak into your life. These people determine what feels normal to you, and what feels normal eventually becomes what you accept. That's why proximity drives standards. If you're constantly around people who tolerate average, you'll start to think that's okay. If you're around people who settle, you'll start to do the same, not because you're weak, but because you're human. Your environment pulls you in, whether you know it or not. If you want to raise your standards, you have to raise your proximity. Look around. Who are you spending the most time with? What do they value? How do they handle challenge? Do they push themselves? Do they complain or solve? Because their habits are rubbing off on you, even if it's subtle. That casual friend who's always late and never follows through. That becomes normal if you let it. The coworker who always cuts corners and laughs it off. That starts to feel acceptable. It's not about judging people. It's about protecting your future. You get one life. You cannot afford to be casual with the people you allow close to you. Your circle either elevates you or holds you back. There's no neutral. People either remind you of what's possible, or they convince you to shrink your vision, and this happens slowly. You might not notice it at first. But over time, your standards start to slip. Your urgency fades. You stop reaching, not because your goals changed, but because your environment did. On the other hand, when you're around people who push hard, who show up prepared, who talk about growth and goals instead of gossip and drama, everything shifts. You start thinking bigger. You start holding yourself to a higher level. Why? Because it's the standard. It becomes the new normal. You stop making excuses because no one else around you is making them either. That's the power of proximity. If you've ever walked into a room and instantly felt out of place, in a good way, that's a sign. That's where you should lean in. If you're the smartest, most driven person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Get uncomfortable, stretch yourself, find people who are a few steps ahead of you and learn from them. It's not about competing with them. It's about exposing yourself to what's possible when discipline and ambition collide. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to the level of your systems, and your systems are built by your environment. If your environment doesn't support growth, growth won't happen. It's that simple. You can have all the motivation in the world, but if you're surrounded by people who don't care, it will wear you down. That's why protecting your proximity is one of the highest forms of discipline. It takes courage to step away from comfort and into challenge. It takes clarity to realize that just because someone's been in your life for a long time doesn't mean they belong in your future. This isn't about cutting everyone off. It's about being intentional. Not everyone needs front row access to your life. Some people need to be loved from a distance. Some conversations need to end. Some invitations need to be declined. Because if you're serious about not wasting your life, you need to be serious about who's around you while you build it. The people closest to you influence your language, your mindset, your pace. If you're trying to run and they're walking, eventually you'll slow down. Not because you want to, but because you don't want to be alone. But what's worse, running alone for a season or spending your whole life walking with people who never wanted to go anywhere, start looking at proximity as strategy. Curate it, invest in it, make it intentional, surround yourself with people who challenge your thinking, call out your blind spots and inspire your next level, spend time with people who are focused, honest, and driven. Watch how fast your standards rise. Watch how much sharper your decision making becomes. Watch how your energy shifts. You don't have to figure this all out alone, but you do have to choose your circle wisely. Because they will either push you toward your potential or pull you away from it. And if you've been stuck, plateaued, or unmotivated, it might not be you. It might be your environment. Change it and everything changes. Proximity isn't just about access, it's about alignment. Align yourself with people who are building something, who are showing up with intention, who are chasing excellence. When you do, you won't need to force growth. It will happen naturally because your standards won't let you settle. That's the difference. That's the power of who you're around. Use it wisely. Most people act like they have unlimited time. They say they'll start when things calm down, when they feel ready, when they're more confident, when it's the right time. but that perfect time never comes, and the longer they wait, the more they delay their growth, their momentum, and their impact. What they don't realize is that urgency, not more time, is their biggest advantage. Urgency cuts through distraction, it forces clarity, it makes you move, and when you move, you learn. When you learn, you grow. And when you grow, your life changes. Living with urgency doesn't mean being frantic. It means being intentional. It means recognizing that every day is either a deposit into your future or a delay of it. You don't need 10 years to start making progress. You need to stop treating time like it's cheap, because the truth is, you don't have forever, and that's not meant to scare you. It's meant to focus you. Urgency is a reminder that what you want won't wait around for you to be comfortable. Growth doesn't care about your excuses, results don't care about your fear, and your goals won't chase you. You have to decide they're worth pursuing now, not later. When you act with urgency, you stop tolerating things that waste your time. You stop saying yes to everything. You start making faster decisions. You stop overthinking and start executing. People who live with urgency get more done not because they're more talented, but because they understand that time is leverage and they use it. You've probably met people who always seem to be moving fast, getting results, growing their careers, building something meaningful. It's not magic, it's urgency. They're not waiting for the stars to align. They're building under pressure, making progress without perfect conditions. Waiting feels safe, but it's actually a risk. Every time you delay action, you lose a little momentum. You lose belief in yourself. You build the habit of hesitation, and hesitation is expensive. It costs you opportunities, connections, results, and confidence. Urgency isn't about rushing, it's about being unwilling to waste time. It's about refusing to drift through another week, another month, another year, without pushing towards something that matters. You need to treat your goals like they have a deadline, not someday, not eventually. Now, start acting like your future depends on what you do today, because it does. That conversation you've been avoiding, have it. That idea you've been sitting on, build it. That habit you've been meaning to, start. Start it today. Urgency isn't something you're born with. It's a mindset, a discipline, a decision, and when you combine urgency with clarity, everything changes. You stop spinning your wheels on the wrong things. You focus, you say no more easily, you let go of the fantasy that things will magically fall into place. You realize they fall into place when you act with intention. You create your momentum. You create your breakthroughs. You stop waiting for motivation and start creating movement. Ask yourself, where in your life are you coasting? Where have you been telling yourself you'll start soon? What dream have you quietly been putting off until later? There's nothing wrong with having a long-term vision, but visions mean nothing if you don't act today. Urgency is how you close the gap between where you are and where you want to be, and the best part? It's 100% within your control. You don't need permission. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need to start. The people who succeed, who build, who lead, they all have one thing in common: they don't wait. They don't wait for motivation or approval or the absence of fear. They start messy. They start when it's inconvenient. They start before they feel fully ready. That's urgency. It's the decision to act anyway. Because doing something imperfectly today is always better than doing nothing while you wait for perfect conditions that never arrive. Every day you waste wondering, doubting, procrastinating. You're giving away time you'll never get back. You're delaying the person you're capable of becoming. Urgency is what breaks that cycle. It's what closes the gap. It's what makes you dangerous, because once you stop waiting and start building, there's no limit to what you can create. So if you feel stuck, tired, uninspired, the solution isn't always more rest or more time. It might be more urgency. It might be deciding that you're done waiting, done wasting, done holding back. Urgency makes you resourceful. It sharpens your focus, it builds resilience, and most of all, it creates momentum. Start now, not later, not when it's easy, not when you feel like it, now, because urgency is your advantage. Use it.